about getting vinyl pressed, right? Because you have to get a lot of copies done because the setup is so expensive.
Yeah. And otherwise, it's just way too much to do.
Honestly, every time I move house, I think I'd probably throw away about 1,000 CDs because when I've had CDs pressed in bands, it's like, you can get 500 CDs for 500 quid or you can get 1,000 for 600 quid. And it's like, well, why would you not get 1,000? And then you're like, I'll tell you why you don't get 1,000 because you end up with 500 under your bed.
Yeah, exactly. Just loft full of CD insulation.
Welcome back to Are You Creative podcast. That was just like too high energy, wasn't it? That was like drive time radio.
Very much so.
This is a podcast about creativity in and around Essex. So we're talking to really interesting creative people from the area. I am Nick Hearn. I am a creative director. I'm supposed to be an expert in creativity. And my co-host is Sangeeta Mitra.
And I'm not so creative.
But she's getting more and more creative every episode.
I am.
The more creatives that you're exposed to, in a good way.
In a good way. In a very good way. It really has opened
Luckily,
up
you
my
haven't
eyes.
exposed yourself to any creatives so far.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good. And we got another... Oh, hang on. I should probably just say we're here in Lorca Media Studios, home of the Monster Network, with the absolute bad man, Adam Whittaker. I love this place.
I love this place.
So good. His collection of snacks is fantastic. And the service is fantastic.
It's
Look at this.
A-class.
I've got a cup of tea here. We've got what have we got? Almond slices, Bakewell slices, Brookie bites. I didn't even know Brookies were a thing. I guess that's a brownie cookie. So, here we go. We're happy. We're comfortable.
happy.
We're locked in. And we've got a brilliant guest here. We have got...
The one and only repeat beat poet, a.k.a. Peter de Graaf Johnson. That is the government name.
It's straight legal, government name.
Straight legal, the government name. I go by many names. Also, Mr. Loosey Goosey, which is my DJ name.
Mr. Loosey Goosey, that's brilliant.
Mr. Loosey Goosey. But no, you can call me PJ for the podcast.
PJ, all right, that saves that. Oh, my God.
Right, I'm going to do a disclosure.
Let's do it. Go on.
Right, so normally on these Are You Creatives, I have to guess what you do.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, I remember you now, Peter.
Yeah.
I do remember you, Mum. I remember. I got it now.
Well, where do you remember him from?
Listen, me and Peter go back many years from
Family,
Black
friends.
History Month, and his mum has done so much in the community when we did a lot of community development work. So big up.
So what you're
big up.
saying, Sangeeta, is you're saying we don't need to check his passport, his Essex passport.
No, he's definitely
You're definitely Essex.
Because you know how many times I've tried to get hold of Peter.
Yeah, I know.
Right? But you know what? He disappears from Essex. But he's an Essex boy.
I'm always back. I'm
He's
never
always-
far.
Yeah,
He's always back when my festivals are over.
exactly. I had to get Dog the Bounty Hunter to go and get him and kidnap him and bring him back for this.
That's why.
So, PJ, you're a Chelmsford boy.
Indeedy, St. John's Hospital, 94.
I love it, original.
That's brilliant. Tell us what ward and bed it was as well.
I mean, I could find that information, but I don't have it off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, St John's Hospital. Is that the one they knocked down really near here?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
R.I.P. St John's.
yeah.
Okay. So, literally, we are recording this about probably half a minute away from where you were born.
Yeah, and I didn't really clock that, but yeah,
Now,
that is 100% true.
imagine if the little baby beat poet had known that 20-something years later, he'd be in some guy's shed talking nonsense about about creativity. That's genius. All right, PJ, are you creative?
For my sins, yes, I am.
Yes, good. We are going to talk about stuff. Now, you do loads of stuff. Why don't you tell us about all the things you do?
In one breath? Okay.
Yeah, in one
I,
breath.
right?
Come on. No breath. Like Kabaddi. This is going to be like Kabaddi, right?
Yeah, kabaddi.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That takes me back as well to getting slapped across a bleeding football field. No.
Come on.
If I was to summarise what I do, there used to be a term, a man of letters.
A man of letters.
A man of letters and words. No, so...
What's your favourite letter?
Oh, I mean, probably T.
Yeah, I
Very
like tea as
versatile.
well.
Yeah, you know, also because I like drinking tea. So
Exactly.
Boom, boom. Anyway,
I love t-shirts as well.
yeah, you see, look, we can get.
No one's ever designed a better bit of clothing than a t-shirt.
Oh, see, this is a very, very dangerous.
All right, let's not talk about letters.
It's a circuitous route. No, yeah. So I'm among many other things. I'm a writer, a journalist, a DJ, and an amateur historian and researcher. I also like to consider myself somewhat of a. I mean, if it's not too grandiose to say, and I actually think it is a really humble thing, I consider myself to be a lifelong student. Like, I'm just a lifelong learner. I'm always learning, and I'm always fascinated about essentially learning new ways to see and understand the world beyond my own prisms, because I think it's a really important thing because we are increasingly isolated as people. So I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about, I don't know, like plumbing or whatever. But if I learn about this, then I can talk to people about this. Or, you know, I treat that with the exact same amount of interest I might be learning about, I don't know, the like Argentinian funk scene of the 80s or something. You know, it's all fertile ground for knowledge and investigation for me. So yeah, if I had to summarize, I am a poet and a writer and a DJ.
Hang on, I think this podcast got a bit crazy, right? I feel like I'm a little atom at the moment with all these mad things flying around
mate,
me.
I've got so many
Argentinian funk
questions.
and plumbing.
I don't know actually much about Argentinian funk or plumbing. They were just random examples.
And
I just picked better ones.
The reason why you came on my radar was you came to do a talk at the Ignite session at Chelmsford as repeat beat poet, and talking about slam poetry and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Which I guess is part of your Man of Letters universe.
100%. I mean, yeah, I said that and I do believe it, but I should have just said writer. Like, it's the easiest
No,
term.
I love it, man. Man of Letters is so good.
Yeah. it is.
What's dilettante? Dilettante's like someone that does lots of things, right? Is it? I don't know.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
I do
That's what I'd like
remember-
to be. Like, I just, what are you? Just a dilettante, just amateur at about a million things.
Yeah, like I used to love the term. He's a flaneur.
Oh, yes.
A person who just wanders cities, like taking it all in, but also like, you know, the bon vivant as well. Just like, you know, the Renaissance man, just random, like, you know, French affectations. Maybe that's a British.
What I
thing.
love about flaneuring is when you give something that's just sort of wasting time, but you give it a grand title.
Yeah, I
and
love
then,
that.
And then it sounds like there's purpose to it. And it's just like, just having a wander around the city, chilling.
I
But
think
it's
it
like,
was
as soon as you say it's flaneur, I'm a flaneur.
It's just a British like inferiority complex about like French culture as well. Like it's just, you know, like put a French name on it and all of a sudden it's incredibly you know, like high culture, haute couture. And it's like, nah mate, it's a caf. Yeah. It's a caf, yeah. Don't call it a cafe, it's a caf.
Milling about, I'm just milling about, mate. Just milling in town. Flaneur. I'm going to flaneur in Chelmsford city centre.
Now, honestly, like I consider myself a Chelmsford flaneur. I will often be seen about wandering, you know, just on a long walk. I have a great sense of history and stories around Chelmsford, and it actually brings me back to the talk I gave at Ignite, which was, among many other things, it was about my history, growing and being comfortable. Being a spoken word artist. By the way, I'm going to use some of these terms interchangeably. So spoken word artist, poet, slam poet. For me, it's like they are different avenues of the same fountain. Do you know what I mean? Like the fountain is I'm a writer and a poet. And in some contexts, I've been more of a slam poet. And by a slam poet, I mean that it's a fake competitive parlor game of poetry. A great way to fill a room, to get everybody involved. You got, even if you're not the actual poet, the audience is more involved because you're judging or you're hooping or you're hollering or you're trying to sway the judges. And also as a poet, it reminds us that sometimes we're way too in our own heads, we're in our own worlds. But like, there's a great quote that I think it was either Michael Rosen, don't quote me on that, but the quote is, most people don't care about poetry because poetry doesn't care about most people. And a slam is a great way to interrupt that.
So when we talk about slam poetry,
Yeah.
You know, you might know it. It's a bit like if you've seen like Eminem 8 Mile, that's like freestyle rapping, right? Where it's like a battle between two rappers, right? And slam poetry is almost like the poetry version of that, right? But it's not, you know, you say it's like fake competitive.
Yeah,
it's friendly. You're not really like trying to like rinse each other out so badly.
Yeah, no, it's not more. It's not that you're competing with each other. It's that you're competing against each other in a format to get the highest score.
And is that pre-written or is some of it freestyle as well?
Almost all pre-written, but like the line between poets and rappers got incredibly thin and is still quite thin. And you have a lot of MCs, a lot of rappers who, to test their material, will take it away from a beat, away from a studio, and they'll put it in front of a poetry audience because you can't hide behind anything.
When you listen to probably even the last 3 Kendrick Lamar albums as well, a lot of that stuff gets really close to poetry without beats as well.
Functionally, I'm of the opinion that functionally the best rappers are poets.
Yeah.
And the best writers, full stop, in any medium, theatre, TV, whatever, film. There must be a poetic quality to the writing, in my opinion, because it's something about the fundamental aspect of poetry, which is essentially just like playing with beautiful words and meanings. And it's something beyond just having nice words. It's something about having the right words in the right order being delivered in the right way. And that's why poets often will get a start in poetry and then will very quickly become lyricists or playwrights or, again, script writers or advertising or all of this uses poetry.
And that's, when you think about that, it's not just your use of words. It's like like you say, the constructs, like the rhythms, the way you put together. I can't. Yeah, sorry. I can't be clever enough. I was just trying to think about Shakespeare as iambic pentameters, but is that satisfying rhythm that we don't understand but we appreciate as listeners?
100%. We feel faster than we can think, right? And if you're into any sort of art or culture, you know that because you have a taste, you have a thing that you understand. Oh, I like this, I don't like that. But you might not be able to put the right terminology to it because you've not done A-level film studies or you didn't, you weren't listening in GCSE English, whatever. But your intelligence as a critical consumer is the same as anybody else's. I don't think that, every single individual in an audience is valid and worthy, and their opinions must be valid and worthy because every human is valid and worthy.
So that's a bit like, I like it. What is it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best reaction, isn't it?
Like it. What is that? Tell me more about it. But so if you're into hip hop, you might really like sibilants. You might really like assonance. These are just
okay. You're gonna have to explain these to our listeners. Explain to Sangeeta.
Assonance is oh lord, now I'm being tested on my English knowledge. Basically, assonance is repeated consonant sound, and sibilance is a repeated S sound. So 6 silly sausages sent stupid swords to
Sangeeta.
To Sangeeta.
Yes.
There you go.
Sangeeta, you just won the slam. You won the slam.
I love it.
Clicks, tens across the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you know what I mean? And it's important. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that we as audiences are all worthy of knowing our own tastes, and then it's great to be able to identify that because it helps us learn what we like and what we don't like.
Yeah, so I think if someone likes something, you can't play them down for liking something because they like it in the same way that you might like something that's deeper, right?
Don't yuck anyone's yum.
Yeah, I love that. That's why he's a poet. What got you into poetry?
Great question. What got me into poetry was, so as you mentioned, I was born and raised as much in the church as anywhere else. And this is, specifically Elim Church, Molsham Street.
Local.
Proper local, yeah. And this is the church where my mum was and still is, a core community figure. But I came to the idea of spirituality and God and higher powers through music. It was the thing that really it just set my little heart alight, and I understood that I was part of something bigger and broader than me, also through service, as in the whole thing about being humble enough, the last shall be first, the most powerful must serve, the one with quote unquote least power, right? You judge a person on how they treat the person with the most little power in the room.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I wanted to contribute to this feeling, and I was musical. Thanks to my great grandparents and grandparents and parents. There's always been a lot of music in the house, and there's music in my family. And so when I was quite young, I thought, you know what, let me try out to play music. And then
was that through the church as well?
Yeah, that was through the church. So
Man, so many of the best musicians in the world are from church as well.
Yeah, like it's because you can't fake the feeling. Like if you're playing music in a church and you are putting not too much of yourself, but essentially people can smell a fake a mile away. If the show is about you as the drummer or you as the singer or you as the guitarist, and it's not about providing an experience, a worship experience, then you're not doing it right. And don't get me wrong, you can be playing some crazy, incredible, way out there, super complex, choppy stuff. Yeah. But as long as it's in service of the thing, then people will go with you. Yeah. But yeah, so I started in the church at the same time I was playing music in school. So I started out...
What instruments were you playing, by the way?
Yeah, this is the list, right? Yeah. So I started out playing, as you always do, recorder.
Yeah. Then I moved... did that.
Exactly. Everyone's got to start somewhere. So recorder, then clarinet, and then piano at the same time as well, classical piano, then jazz piano, and then I got into drums and percussion. Then I was playing guitar, I was playing bass, I was doing backing singing as well.
Wow.
I can get a tune out of a saxophone. I was playing that for a short while too.
So at the church, would you sort of swap around instruments as well?
Yeah, so when I was in the band at church, I played mostly drums because it's always harder to find drummers. But then
that's why you get one good drummer in about 20 bands.
Exactly, especially because normally they have a kit. But I actually learned, fun Chelmsford fact, like the band T-Rex? Children of the Revolution.
Yeah.
The drummer of T-Rex, a guy called Bill Legend, he was the drummer at Elim Church.
Oh, no way.
He taught me drums for a couple years. And his drum kit was the drum kit that I was learning on. And yeah, his daughter was the year below me at a nursery, also at Elim. And and so that's who I learned drums from.
That's incredible.
And I was playing drums in church, and then but mostly drums, but also rhythm guitar, also keys, and also backing singing, but mostly drums and rhythm guitar. What was really great about the time at church though was that I was playing with like my two best friends at the time. Shouts out Pete and Danny, because what happened was the former worship leader was like leaving, went off to uni. They needed a new worship leader, and they had my friend Danny, and she, more than anything else, she understood people's sensitivity to just to the divine. And so she would be like eyes closed, swaying in the music. And then Pete is an incredible guitarist. He would be, doing lead guitar, and I'd be drumming. We'd have a bassist. And between us, we just had this non-verbal communication way of being like, okay, we're coming up, we're coming down, we're going into this song, going out.
She was like a bit like a conductor for you. Like you could just pick up the vibes off her and then and know where you should take it.
Yeah, and she trusted us musically to completely give her the safety to just be in a divine moment where it wasn't about her, it was entirely about what devotion to spirituality through this music meant.
That's so good. Going on a journey, man.
Yeah. And look, and this is just what got me into poetry, right? We haven't talked about poetry. What happened here is that after doing that for like 4 or 5 years, and also being in indie bands, I played in many a great indie band. Shout out James and the Giant Pete's.
The Giant Pete's.
Yeah, because me and Pete, the same Pete from church, we were playing in it. And then our guitarist was called James. Kieran didn't get his name in the band, but also he was in the band. But we played our first gig where, that's right, the YMCA, mate.
Oh, amazing!
Good old YMCA.
Opposite back in time.
The Y Club.
So after doing that for a few years, I thought, you know what? I've been playing a lot of people's music, a lot of other people's music, but I want to have my own words. I want to be able to put my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings, my fears, my hopes, my dreams, my whatever. I wanted to be able to write that and put it out. And so I started writing about the age of 17, 18, just scribbling stuff on, the equivalent of napkins, just random bits of A4 notebooks. And then when I got to, I took a year out in between 18 and going to uni. At this point, I was also doing a lot of journalism. So I was reviewing films. I'd go watch films, at the Odeon. And then I'd go for food after that, and I'd write a review, try to do 1 or 2 a week. And I just thought, I have all of these other thoughts and feelings that are also spilling out of me. And I'd always written small bits. When I was 10, I wrote a small poem about something that was really important. Maybe when I was like 13, 14, small things. But when I was 18, I was like, you know what? Let me give this a proper crack. And I started seriously trying to put thoughts and feelings onto the page. And obviously, like anybody starting anything, you start by imitating the things that you know and the people that you know. So I was very into, this is about 2011, 12, 13. And so there's a great, phenomenal local guy who you will know called Scroobius Pip.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
Hang on, Scroobius Pip, who's not answering my messages to ask him to come on this podcast.
Rude.
Everyone's got to start somewhere,
If
right?
you're listening.
I mean, I remember when Disaster Pieces started. I was an early adopter for that. I was an early listener. So Scroobius, come on.
Exactly.
Sort it out, mate. Come and pay your dues.
Yeah, and that was about 2011. And so, like, yeah, he had so many great pieces, but obviously...
Thou Shalt is such a great track.
Thou Shalt Always Kill. And so, yeah, like, yeah, but basically between people like Scroobius Pip and K Tempest and Saul Williams and many other writers, but also hip hop, right? So like I inherited a lot of my music taste from my older brother. And so I was really into like East Coast hip hop, like sort of like 87, 88, all the way through to like 2004, 5, 6. So that's everything from like, you know, like Rakim and like Big Daddy Kane and like Kool Moe D, all the way up to, at that time, it was early era Kanye, college dropout era. And
before he went mad.
Before Kanye became Ye and all of the dramatic stuff. But across that full spectrum and then across hip hop in general, I was like, there is something about the wonderful economy of language here, something about the sonority of words, the way they land, the way they feel in the face when you spit them out. And it just, it made me so excited. And so I just started writing out pieces. And I was also very into the beat poets. Yeah. So here I can also tell you where the name comes from, the repeat beat poet. It comes from, really simply, what does a DJ do? They chop up a beat and they repeat it. Yeah. There is an extending of it. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a really interesting thing here, because you take, you know, you sample an incredible thing, but you take maybe, it might not even be half a second, but sometimes it's a bar, sometimes it's 4 bars, but you take that, you dig into it and you expand it. And in the exact same way, I felt that the stream of consciousness writing of the beat poets, people like your Jack Kerouacs and Allen Ginsberg and Ted Jones and Deanne DePrima and even like Bob Dylan is in and around this space. I thought that they were doing a similar thing, because they were taking one train of thought and they would follow it and stretch it out and stretch it out. And it was like this insatiable searching. And I took this from Africa Bambaataa, looking for the perfect beat. And then in the same way with Jack Kerouac, the whole idea of being on the road, the constant search for something, he never finds it, they never find it. And there's something bittersweet in that, but the search is the thing, the journey is the thing. So yeah, repeat, beat, poet.
So when you when you were starting out there, what were the sort of issues and things that you were taking your inspiration for? You know, what was your source material that you wanted to write about?
The first poem I wrote when I was about 10 was a piece that will never see the light of day, thank God. But it was a piece called Africa Adjourned.
Hang on. That you sound like a very precocious 10-year-old.
Such a precocious 10-year-old, mate. I can't believe I'm putting this out there. But
I'm going to ask AI to write that later on.
Oh, please.
Africa Adjourned. I think that's going to be a good one.
It'll be no worse than the actual poem I wrote. But the source material there is that, like, I literally remember randomly on CNN, George W. Bush had said something about there being like either like no basically he was putting all of his African issues on hold. He just wasn't dealing with Africa for that moment, and it was such a throwaway thing. And I was just like, I remember as a kid seeing it, just being like, how can you like just think that you can disregard an entire continent of people, the birthplace of civilization, you know, and so as a precocious 10-year-old, I went, okay, let me write a poem about how there is such strength and value and preciousness in the land of Africa and African people. And funnily enough, I think it is still what I'm writing about.
Do you think, you know, like, because when I was 10, like I would never have had that depth of thought or cultural sensitivity.
It was nascent, though.
Do you think that church gave you that? You know, gave you that thinking, like, you know, listening to people talk as well. I don't know anything about church because I've never been to church really, but like, listening to people unpack thoughts and discuss it.
Yeah, I think where church is, where church has influenced my writing here is that I just learned that like people deserve to be listened to, and like you can be in community with people and not necessarily like everyone, but you can also appreciate that everyone has their own lives. Everyone's got their own struggles and hopes and dreams, etc. And then also there's things about like public speaking that are just, the same wherever you do them. You could be a preacher, you could be a teacher, you could be a poet, you could be a podcast host, and it's still a form of public speaking. So I did definitely get that from church too. And then, also just, like all of the ideals that, Abrahamic faiths and many other faiths and religions, no one has a monopoly on morality, but the simple idea of justice and what like social justice looks like, what an equal and equitable world would look like. These things I learnt through many different frameworks, but obviously evangelical Christianity, Methodist Christianity, even talking about ideas of like spiritual internal balance I learned from Quakerism, which is a part of Christianity, but then also that took me very close to Buddhism and Taoism. And so, oh my Lord, I'm actually going to do the thing that I try not to do, but I'm going to quote myself here.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. There's a
Inception. Africa adjourned. PJ is about to quote himself.
Go for it.
No, thank God it was a poem that is a lot better than that, if I do say so myself. It's a poem called Push It, and there is a line in there where I say, I'm a scripture-twisting little demon, far from heathen. I believe in the power of words to build or break a whole world. I mean that literally, words make the world twirl. And that right there is still a bit of my philosophy. Like, I believe that words create meaning and it makes the world spin. And I also, like, I will twist scripture like a little heathen for the actual benefit of, like material, present, in the moment, functional change that is to be felt and to be, this is the thing I was saying earlier, like we feel faster and deeper often than we think. So yeah, man, that's the line.
That was a very economical bit of writing there.
Damn straight.
Packed a lot in there.
Damn straight.
It's
That's
like
the mission.
I'm a drummer as well, and I appreciate the rhythm. So like, that's pretty mad. But
that's amazing. I'm so stunned.
Yeah, people say it's like Mark Twain or Churchill. Some people say sometimes, sorry, I didn't have the time to write you a short letter. Like, how long does it take you to craft something like that economical and powerful?
It depends. It really depends. Some poems fall out of me immediately. Some of them are like, literally, it will just be, there was a time I'd be writing poems on 10-minute, like quote unquote cigarette breaks in the toilet at work.
Yeah.
I would just print off till roll and have to get that thought out.
What, hang on, bog roll?
Well, no. Normally till roll. I'm not a
Listen,
heathen.
he's got some class here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Hang on, a 10-minute break at work. Yeah. Where can I get some paper from?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, we've all done our shifts in hospitality, haven't we?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
that's great. So, you set yourself a bit of a limit and you're like, I've got something burning. Like I've been thinking of this in my shift and then I just want to write it down straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one mode of writing, but there were modes of writing where, because I also like where I got my start as a poet was in the London spoken word scene about 2014 through to basically through to now, almost a decade, or just over a decade, in fact. But like, and during that time, I'd be going to maybe 2-3 poetry nights a week. And once you have 2 or 3 pieces, you think, oh, well, I can't just keep on reading these pieces.
Yeah, everyone's going to know it.
Exactly. And so, it not forces you, but it encourages you to write more and to write regularly. And so, during that time, maybe I would write 1 or 2 pieces a week, maybe even 3, but like, editing is also where a lot of the writing happens. And the thing about being a spoken word artist with the emphasis on spoken is that, in my opinion, a poem is not entirely finished until I've read it out to somebody, whether that's one person or an audience, and been able to get some feedback, because maybe what I thought the poem is entirely not how it's landing. And that's not a thing to say that the poem is good or bad, but just it's a bit different. And so that's 2 modes of writing. There's a whole other mode of writing. I do a lot of writing for commissions, and obviously that's a whole different type of deadline. And so maybe you get a week to write this 1 minute scene, and you have to hit these points and you have to have this word in, and it has to leave the audience with the feel of XYZ. And that's also a different mode of pressured writing, but sometimes those pieces could take weeks to write until the very last moment, and then bam, all of a sudden everything is there. I've done the research, I've done the prep, I've written it, I've edited it, and then it just is there. But and then also if I'm writing for music as well, I do a lot of freestyle writing and rapping too. So that's purely creating in the moment, where I'm drawing on what I'm thinking or feeling or anything else going on in the world.
How are you capturing that? Like, if you're like freestyling it, you think, oh, those lines went well when I write them down, or do you record it and then play it back later on?
Yeah, both, but normally I'm free writing, so I literally just say, set a 2-minute timer and then just put my pen on the page, and what comes out, comes out. It's a bit terrifying to do that live on the microphone in front of a crowd, but I have done that too.
Oh, wow.
I went to see Ramesh Ranganathan at Chelmsford Theatre, and it was lovely. It was a work in progress thing.
He's
It was
brilliant.
so funny.
Yeah.
He was just chatting, and then everyone would laugh, and he'd be like, "Oh, that was funny, wasn't it?" And then he'd go and write it down in a book.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, oh, this is so mad, like working out live in front of a crowd.
Yeah,
And
like-
making stuff up and being like, that got a big laugh. I'm just going to go
I'm
write
going
it
to
down.
do that again.
Yeah, see, stand-up comedians and poets have such a, so basically I often group stand-up comedians, poets. There was an era of the YouTube vlogger, but before it became a full massive industry.
Yeah.
There was an era where those three types of people were incredibly close in how they did their work, because you were putting stuff out regularly every week, 3 to 4 minute bits, and you needed an audience reaction to know if it was good or not.
But you're so exposed as well, being up there in front of people.
Yeah.
Being. I mean, for me, being the drummer, you've got all your armor in front of you, right? You got your cymbals and your drums. You're protected a bit, and as soon as you get up the front of the stage, and then you take away music from that as well, and it's just you and a mic.
Yeah, just you and the microphone. You got to stand on your words.
So I want to ask, we get to 18, you know that this is what you want to do. How does your parents take that as a career choice?
Go to uni, get your education, give yourself a solid foundation. Do you know what I mean? That's what they were like. But they also gave me all of the encouragement. And even before this, they were like, yeah, you want to do music classes after school? Fine. We'll support that. Like football, all my sports, they supported that. It was, you have the thing of knowing that as a younger sibling, I was graced with an elder sibling who
So that's good.
Yeah, he probably got a bit more of that pressure to go down the straight and narrow, and thank God for him.
And that's why he rebelled with East Coast hip hop.
I'm the oldest, so I get it.
Exactly, yeah. And so I always knew that I had a bit of insulation there, but I also knew that really the thing that would make my parents happy is as long as I was trying my best and I was also happy.
And so important.
It's so important. And I never sort of said outwardly, oh, I'm gonna become a poet. That wasn't the thing. The plan was go to uni, get my English lit degree, which I did, and work out a way to functionally earn multiple income streams through my creativity.
Isn't that mad? Because even as a creative person, I think about poetry, and I still don't think of it as a career.
Yeah,
and I say, you think it's something that people do as well as something else, being a writer or something. But you are actually, you're pretty much a full-time poet here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have been a full-time poet for a couple of years, but also I have absolutely no shame in being I also, have to have a 9-to-5 and earn day jobs. And most poets, 95% of poets are not singularly earning their money through live performances and books and speaking engagements. Unless you're literally John Cooper Clarke or Holly McNish or Kay Tempest, and this is just, or maybe Harry Baker, there's obviously Michael Rosen, but all of these people as well, they're writers. They're writers, right? And so it is not.
I suppose Kay Tempest, a musician, you're
1,000%. And so what I had to make my peace with very early on, and it's the thing that any poet will tell you, you might get a lot of interest and passion, and you might move very quickly from doing your 3-minute open mic to your 15-minute feature where somebody might chuck you 30 quid, and then all of a sudden you're ready to be on somewhat of a circuit where you can maybe get 50 quid, maybe get 100 quid for your sets. One, not everybody can do that, and two, even if you can do it, not everyone can do it for long. And naturally, as a creative person, you want to progress. You want to expand upon your art. You want to maybe try longer sets. Maybe you want to do weirder stuff. Maybe you want to bring in other different types of creativity with your poetry. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, poetry is a foundational thing. It often leads into other things. But, you know, like how many great writers in history also had day jobs? Like 95% of them. It's very rare, actually, that you could just be, unless you had patronage from a literal royal. And maybe we are getting back to that. But, you know.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be so good if you had like, you know, what, like Victorian, but I'm thinking about patrons, you know, it's just like, oh, you are now my poetry. I always say like my dream job would be just be someone's prank monkey, right? And then just say, Nick, can you just make me something that is going to make me laugh once a week or once every 2 weeks? Just bring something to me and make me, just to amuse my brain.
The way that wealth inequality is going, that's basically how everyone has to live anyway. You just like have to suckle off like, you know, a rich person's teat because they have so much money. It's literally falling out of them. And look, even in the past like 5 years, the accumulation of wealth of the super wealthy, the richest people in the world, they've earned gangbusters while everybody else has been essentially scrabbling. And so why do you think that now like luxury spending, asset prices have become so inflated? And it's not just housing. Look at the price of classic things. Gold, classic assets.
God,
because once rich people have stopped being able to buy all of the normal assets, the easy assets, what do? They buy up houses, they buy up land. And this is why now people are having to either glom together because there is truly safety in numbers, or you just attach yourself to the super wealthy and you earn your money, you know, like in a hospitality job serving rich people £20 glasses of wine.
So my friend
ran over.
Sense.
Not over.
Sense. I love it.
My friend once made a documentary about Mark Wahlberg and his entourage.
Yeah.
And this is before Entourage, the series, came out. And he said there was a guy in Mark Wahlberg's entourage called Rasta Phil. And Rasta Phil's job was just to make sniffs.
Brilliant.
Just to roast for Mark Wahlberg when he wanted them. So, you know, being a poet to the stars, you know, you can imagine like someone, can you imagine like, you know, for people, you know, I'm not suggesting that Boris Johnson, you go and work for him, but, you know, people like this want to feel important and want to feel like they're going to be remembered in art, right? That's why they want their portraits painted by famous people and stuff. So why not just find a rich patron and be like, I'm going to write a poem about you every week, and then you put an acrostic in it that just says like how terrible they are.
And for those who don't know, an acrostic is where the first letter of every line spells out. So if you read the first letter down, that spells out maybe a sentence.
Yeah, it might say Boris is a big idiot.
Exactly. And to be honest, I want someone to write that poem. Send it in to Are You Creative Podcast.
Can I also now, okay, so I know for a fact, because it's been hard to get hold of you, a lot of your work has been out of the city, out of Chelmsford City. What made you go to London rather than, like, what I'm trying to get to, because we've interviewed quite a few creatives, and actually a lot of people's journeys have been where they've secured something or commissions within their field, but they've had to come out of Essex to do that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with. So you're 18, 19, you've got this skill, you're at uni, you're doing your thing, and then you go on into your 20s and you're more over in London than here. Yeah.
So not only was it more over in London, I also deliberately wanted to decenter London and the Southeast in my like live performances. I wanted to do as many gigs outside of the Southeast, outside of London as possible. Good. My first tour in the UK was 4 dates in Scotland. And this was outside of the Fringe, you know, it was just doing poetry nights up there. But yeah, I suppose what took me away from Essex when I started doing poetry is that there wasn't a scene here. There wasn't like the live music scene in Essex during the time when I was, you know, like I was in indie bands, and there were three types of things. There were singer-songwriters, there were indie bands, and there were metal bands. Right. And they were playing the pubs, and it became very evident to me that like the sort of fervent, thriving, vibrant poetry nights that I had roughly imagined and heard of, they were happening in random places like Dalston or Stoke Newington,
you.
and that was the hub, the incubator that I needed. It was definitely
Cafe Otto was calling.
Yeah, Cafe Otto, it really was. But like, there definitely was a push factor, and this is at the time where venues were shutting down. This is just around the time of just before Trump had got city status.
Yeah.
So just before that massive influx of property money sort of came in, and I never resented Chelmsford for not being a place where I could really thrive creatively at the start. Also because it was a bit weird. There was stuff happening in Colchester, there was stuff happening in Southend, there was stuff happening in Essex, but it was always either closer to the coast because it was nicer to live out there. People had got out of East London and went to the coast. Chelmsford was almost too close, and this is the thing that Chelmsford has always struggled with. But I always times 1,000, I always knew that there would be things for me in Chelmsford, and that people were interested and they were building and they were like always keeping the scene going. Thank God for places like Hotbox, you know?
If a scene doesn't exist as well, you just start it yourself and see who joins you. A bit like Ethan started Wax's Lyrical.
That's the one.
The night at Hotbox.
Is that what it is? Wax
is lyrical.
I told you, some good lyrical pun.
Exactly,
Wax
always.
lyrical.
But you know, like this is it. You know, you start a scene, make the scene you want.
And this is the thing with Chelmsford. Like, it was actually a commission that brought me doing poetry back. Yeah, it was a commission that brought me back to doing poetry in and about Chelmsford.
Wow.
This was during lockdown. One of the empty shops in the Meadows was inviting in artists to essentially create work about Chelmsford. And the commission I got was questions for my city. And so I wrote a poem filled with questions about Chelmsford. And it was all filled with references about what it was like growing up here and questions about the history of Chelmsford, questions about the future of Chelmsford. I was talking about, like, here's a fun thing I learned during my research. Apparently there's fragments of an old temple, an old pre-Christian temple underneath what is now the Odeon roundabout.
Wow.
Okay.
Like, you know, it's crazy. And obviously if you go back to the sort of late 1380, the big peasants' revolt that happened in England, that was all in Essex. Like, their headquarters, their basis was in Essex. This is why you have like the Wat Tyler Centre, and that's out in, I want to say, like Rettendon or something. But like, you know, so again, I loved coming back to Chelmsford with a critical and an experiential eye. I could add my life experience and the skills I had to do this thing, and it was a good commission. I'm very proud of it. It hung up in the Meadows for literally years, and technically the words are still there. They just like put something in front of it.
Everyone always wants to like rebel against where they grew up and say where I grew up's a bit boring. And you come back to it and you think, oh, actually, it's interesting. It's made me.
Yeah, I know.
And you do find out those stories that you haven't gone deeper into. You know, like it's fascinating when you find out more. I only found out about the witches stuff like a few years ago.
Essex is a place full of incredibly interesting history, which is often either kind of like compartmentalized, just something weird or something just Essex, or it's not fully put into what I would argue is a like effective and interesting world context. Like, I remember growing up knowing that Chelmsford was called the birthplace of radio, and then not really deeping what that meant. And then all of a sudden, cut to, last year, I was November, I went out to Vienna to do a lecture and some performances. And it was the 100-year anniversary of the birth of radio. And I'm talking to people in Vienna about how cool radio is and how important it is as an art form and how it gives people community, and how I grew up, listening to late night radio in my room with my headphones so that my parents didn't know. Sorry, parents. But, but it was such an important thing because I was alone, but I was with people.
All thanks to Gary Macaroni.
All thanks to Gary Macaroni, yeah.
Exactly, the man himself. It's amazing, isn't it?
And so, I think that there's such, I absolutely love, criticizing with love the place that I'm from, because it's just by chance that any of us are here, that any of us were born here, but it is also by chance and by will that things change.
Yes.
And things change very quickly. Yeah.
I think critiques out of love, though, as well, often my favourite, I love the Facebook group Chelmsford Forgotten.
Oh, it's a quality group.
It's funny when you get these little groups that just like laughing about where you're from in a loving way, and to critique it in that way, the positive way. It's just so fun. It gives you a sense of place and identity.
Yeah,
and,
and
you're
also-
unified by that, like the ship getting stuck under the bridge and stuff.
Iconic
The viaduct. Sorry, in Chelmsford, someone got a boat on the trailer stuck in the viaduct. And
You are underselling why this is absolutely fantastic, right? The reason why this is hilarious is because it is nothing that there's nothing quite like hubris of uber rich people, right? And Chelmsford has a fair few of them, and you wouldn't know it until all of a sudden weird things start to happen. And so you have this wonderful Victorian era viaduct which basically runs through town. This is like a key feature of pre-industrial and industrial, and now this era of Chelmsford. Everybody goes through, and obviously this viaduct goes across Parkway, which is also a main feature of the centre of town. Parkway didn't exist before like 1975. It was just all park. Exactly. Yeah. It's wild, right? And so what happens is on the back of a lorry, massive trailer, person has a yacht, fairly nice yacht, white yacht, clean, bright, white yacht.
Who takes a yacht through the middle of Chelmsford?
The middle of town. And basically, because the yacht was too wide, it got stuck in the middle of this viaduct, and hilarity ensued, basically.
And there's nothing more embarrassing about getting stuck in the busiest place as well, where everyone can see you.
Yeah. And also, though, another thing that made it so funny is that there is a certain type of sharp, quick-witted Essex acerbic comedy, and it is a thing which is identifiable. I think Jordan Gray, phenomenal trans comedian,
future guest, hopefully
future guest. They are one of the people who I think exemplifies this really well. Mm-hmm. There is something about the sort of Jack the Laddish, incredibly quick-witted, and it is cutting and it is brutal. And if you ain't up to keeping your mind on it, then you'd be like, what's everyone talking about? Or you think that everyone's taking a piss at you, or they're mean.
You're 10 minutes behind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you got to keep up on it. And so Chelmsford, the Facebook page Chelmsford Forgotten is great for taking the piss and lovingly criticising.
I love that. And also, actually, Jordan Gray, I'm really excited. Is It a Bird's out tomorrow on Channel 4, Jordan's comedy special. So I'm well excited about that.
Wonderful.
So tell us now, Pete. So for you, back in Chelmsford, are you back here, or are you just going wherever the work takes you? How's it for you nowadays?
I'm always back and forth because my family is based here. I'll always be coming back and forth. But currently, I am living back out in East London. But East London and Essex are forever interconnected. So yeah, I'll be back in Chelmsford regularly. And to be honest, I'm back whenever anybody asks me to come back, really.
Yes.
Do you know what, Sangeeta? We're going back to our Marley chat. We've got our country lines, going from Essex into East London.
No, look, it's all right.
We're reporting culture.
We can smuggle Pete back.
I'm doing a lot more DJ gigs in Chelmsford now.
Yay.
Hang on, where are you DJing?
I'm DJing at Thirst Drinks Syndicate.
Oh, brilliant, man.
I went into
on the
Thirst
vinyl?
the other day.
Exactly, all vinyl, mate.
Yeah.
All vinyl. And so I'm playing...
Big up Matt Chenery, please.
Yeah, big up Matt Chinnery, big up the crew there.
Yeah,
So
Danny
basically-
Bounce.
Danny Bounce, yeah. They've invited me to do a residency, so 4 nights, maybe 5 across the year, playing all African music.
Yes.
And this is Loosey Goosey. This is the Loosey Goosey project.
Amazing.
Yes.
Exactly. So, it'll be music like High Life and Soukous and Afrobeat and Afro pop and obviously hip hop, funk, disco, soul, reggae, dub. Yeah, so I'm going to be DJing at Thirst Drink Syndicate, and it's going to be a residency there. They've invited me to do it, and it's super, super exciting. It's a great chance for me to essentially share my love of African music, African dance music, to audiences, and it's a thing that I've wanted to do for years. I've really wanted to bring African music in a serious way, in a fun way, back to Chelmsford. And there's been small bits. There's been the odd Afrobeat DJ here or there, but I really wanted to give African music, especially, and as such, African music, a chance to shine. Look out for dates going up. I'll be at Thirst Drink Syndicate.
What's the night called?
The night is called Loosey Goosey. LLOSE EGUSI.
Where's the name from, though? What?
The name is from Igusi is a food.
Yes, of
It's
course.
Okay, all right.
yeah,
hang on. So I missed a pun because I'm not culturally aware enough.
I mean, look, it's like a triple pun. Trust me. I was very proud of myself when I came up with the name.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, so it's essentially loosey goosey, like, you know, to keep loose and limber. Loosey goosey, like loose seeds. So like igushi seeds is kind of like a melon seed, and like, you know, you grind it into like a paste and you use it as a base for many great foods across West Africa. And it's also, I do a monthly show for it on a place called the Boat Pod, which is a converted barge into a studio, and so there's always geese around, and so I'm like loose goosey, loose goose.
Calm down, mate. We gone too deep there.
This is brilliant.
Triple pun.
I love it.
Triple word score.
All right, I love that. First Drink Syndicate is doing good stuff there. Like Viaduct Road is the place to be, really, in Chelmsford.
It's popping.
First Hotbox, Radio City. It's brilliant. It's where all the culture's happening.
Yeah, that little strip there, it's really hot at the minute. It really is. Yeah.
Obviously, Intense still going around there.
Oh, yeah.
Intense.
Hang
Records. Yeah.
Hang on. Adam F was DJing at Intense on Saturday, and I didn't know, and I saw photos afterwards, and I was so gutted.
Yeah, and like this is another thing about the history of dance music and drum and bass and rave culture in Essex. Like it is steeped here. So there's so many great things about Chelmsford, especially. And as much as I love to rag on Chelmsford, as much as I will criticize it, as much as I despise much of its politics, I will always be here as a voice, as part of the many voices, the chorus of voices, criticizing lovingly and also taking actions to make our city good.
Also,
to make our
mate,
city good for most people.
Also, taking the spirit out of Essex, taking the spirit of Chelmsford elsewhere, man. You know, like taking it to London, take it to Scotland, Vienna.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fly the Essex flag.
Yeah, and it is weird as well, having to be like, yeah, I'm from Essex. No, not the only way is Essex.
Yeah.
There's more.
If there's any young people that want to get into poetry now, or get into spoken word, or even writing, you know, what are the paths that are open to them? You know, for just getting out there, for inspiration, for progressing.
Okay, great question. First off, I will give 3 avenues: school, outside of school, and the internet. Right. So, not gonna lie, if you're genuinely into poetry and you want to learn about poetry, I guarantee there is a teacher in your school who wants to hear from you.
Yeah.
And they want to hear, you know,
Finally, someone wants to know what I'm an expert in.
Yeah, like legit. But seriously, like there's been a lot of work, and I know because I've seen poets do this work to update curriculums, especially the GCSE and A-level curriculums, to include poetry, which is not, for want of a better phrase, pale, male, and stale. You know, like poet.
Why were you looking at me when you said that?
I was looking past you.
No comment.
No comment. So yeah, literally, if you're a young person, if you're still in school or education, and you want to know more about poetry, like, you know, whatever has inspired you, take that thing to an educator and be like, I really like this. Do you have any more like this?
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're going to do 3, aren't you?
Yeah, because
Go on, there's 3 avenues.
You've got to
do
give
it.
people as many ways to get
yeah.
anything as possible.
Yep.
So first is school. The second one is outside of school. So that's just your local poetry night. Whatever your local poetry night is, whether it's Wax's Lyrical at Hotbox, whether it's there's definitely ones in Southend, in Great Leys, in Colchester, you know, and that's just the places I can remember in Essex. I definitely know there's a bunch of stuff happening in smaller towns in Essex because there's older and different types of poets, basically. But yeah, find a local poetry night, and even if you can't find a local one, there's a lot of stuff which is trustworthy, and by trustworthy I mean it is of a quality. It is of. It is good enough to entice you in whatever way.
How do you get on the bill? Like, you know, if I say like Sangeeta here has written a poem.
Yeah.
How would she get on the bill at a poetry night, or how you even feel the confidence to go up there and say, "Can I perform?"
Great question. Here's the secret: the poetry community is small.
Yeah.
You're right.
There is a low barrier of entry.
Yeah.
This is a blessing in my mind. This is a blessing because it means there is nothing. There really is nothing stopping you from just sending that email, just sending that random message.
Could you turn up on a night though, you know, like a bit like an open mic night or something,
100%.
and just say, "Can I read my poem?"
100%. 1, I recommend you do that. But 2, send the message in advance because 1, an organizer will love to know you're coming, and 2, it will give you a bit of confidence because it's a step that you've taken that no one could make you do, that you've just done a thing. And then the third avenue, so after live events and school, is online, right? So, every great YouTube channel, every great poetry YouTube channel will have an archive of thousands of poets and videos that you can just watch and see stuff you like. I'd recommend Def Poetry Jam. I'd recommend Button Poetry. I'd recommend Process Productions. I'd recommend Muddy Feet Poetry. I'd recommend there's Loud Poets. Oh my lord, Loud Poets. If you go to the Loud Poets YouTube channel, it's fantastic because not only do they have videos of poet performances, they also have workshops and forms. And so, like, literally, you want to learn how to write like a palindrome, a mirror poem.
Yeah.
Bam, there's a workshop for that, and it's free. It is free.
Wow.
Like, look, they're
Amazing.
just giving this stuff away.
And you think, like, if you're writing, getting out there and performing it makes the poem real, like you said, and getting that buzz of the community and instant feedback from the crowd.
Nothing like it. There
Yeah, it's
really is
gonna
nothing like
motivate you.
it. Like it really, like,
Feel like a rock star.
yeah, and like, look, who doesn't want to get applauded?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Absolutely.
imagine your job was to do your job and then you got applauded for it at the end of every shift.
absolutely.
Hey, look, I've got to tell you though, once I got booed by 3,000 people and that felt better than being clapped by 10,000.
Really?
Yeah, I've got to tell you, booing is a really, really great feeling.
Really?
Having like 3,000 people boo you, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a massive wrestling fan, and so when you're a bad guy in wrestling, you're called a heel. And when an audience hates you, which is the right response because you're a bad guy, you get a thing called heat. And honestly, oh my god, sometimes the loudest, most, especially like, look, the independent wrestling scene in Essex is
It's massive, man. We know we've had guests. Don't worry, Gary Vanderhorn, our first guest, is like
the
absolute
wrestling
legend.
promoter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
he
Yeah.
was our
See.
first one, yeah.
Oh, look, there's far too many avenues for us
Exactly,
to go
but,
down. I really love this.
But yeah, I
interview.
got heat. I got 3,000 people at London Palladium booing me.
And you enjoyed
and I was
that?
like, come on. You're getting to boo me even more. And it was like, honestly, it was the best feeling ever. And I just thought, oh, this is what a heel must feel like. It's what a pantomime villain must feel like.
Yes,
it's
okay,
good to
fair
be
enough.
bad when you're
Yeah.
playing bad.
Yeah, that's
Not
true.
bad for real life,
Yeah,
but like when you're
that's
playing bad,
true.
it's fun.
And even, and this is the thing, even if you were doing your best and they still booed you and you left with your head ashamed or whatever, look, you're still alive. You're still here. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. Like, also, if you can go through a bad experience, I've done gigs that were bad. I've done I've done Edinburgh Fringe shows where it's you and the sound guy and nobody else in the room, or I'm in a pub in a rural town in Lancashire where no one knows me, and they're like, "Who is this guy talking to us about inequality and racism?" We don't want to hear this. We just here to have a drink. But it builds up resilience, and it reminds you that no one is forced to listen to you.
Yeah.
No one's more important. Be humble, stay humble, but also stay diligent.
Yes.
Keep on your grind, keep working away. Not every gig is going to be the best gig. Again, just to any young budding artists, writers, especially in Essex, especially young men, especially young black men in Essex, I want to say, trust your skills, believe in yourself, and do not let the haters get you down. Be kind, be humble, be generous, be gentle, and remember that more than anything else, your inherent value as a human being will keep you soft, tender, and actually it's worth way more than any of the crap you will be sold by grifters and many people who will try to take advantage of you. I just implore you, I beg, keep yourself soft, keep yourself tender, and keep trying.
Let's write that on a till receipt. Come on, go and get the till receipt. Let's write that down. That's a good one, man. Luckily it's
amazing.
recorded, so you can keep
We've
that.
got that now for life.
All right, Sangeeta, you can write some poetry.
Do you know what? I probably could.
Everybody
I've slammed down a few things. I mean, look, I love what they're doing at Hotbox. Ethan, as you know,
Ethan's
he's
a
also
legend.
one of my
I love
young
him so
people
much.
from how many years ago.
So you could set yourself a crazy challenge this year, Sangeeta. Like, it's 2025, right? Last year you started a podcast.
Yeah.
How about you read a poem this year?
Oh,
So there's
that's
a thing
challenge.
There's a thing called NaPoWriMo, which is National Poetry Writing Month. I think it's in April, and the challenge is write a poem a day for 30 days. They don't have to be good. They don't have to be long. They don't even have to see the light of day. And trust me, if you write 30 bad poems, there might be 5, 6 in there that are really, really nice. And once you give them an edit, all of a sudden you've got two great poems.
And Sangeeta has got so much to talk about, so much thought, so much individual Sangeeta thoughts.
You know what? I've got a month to think about
You should
this.
do
I'm
it.
loving this.
Let's do it. And
Thank you.
Get Ethan to mentor you.
Yeah,
And get up at
absolutely.
Wex's Lyrical.
Yeah.
And we're going to be there.
Did you hear that, Ethan? I'm coming for you. You got to help me now.
Wicked. All right.
Thank you.
Do you know what? Sangeeta's never agreed to get on board with anything creative before.
Yeah, I haven't.
And,
This
and,
is the
I think
first
this is the
time.
one that's tickled her.
Yeah, poetry.
I think it's great. Well, that's
Yeah.
wicked.
Amazing.
So thanks so much for our guest, the repeat beat poet, Lucy Goosey, PJ, Peter Van de... What is Peter
Peter de Graaf Johnson.
I almost called you
Wonderful-
Van de Graaf then.
Yeah,
Like the generator.
there is a whole story
Exactly.
about this.
Yeah. But anyway, Van de Graaf Johnson. Thank you to Adam Whitaker and Lorca Media always for letting us in his studio.
Indeed.
Definitely. Thank you
He
so
doesn't say
much.
anything in the background.
No, he doesn't. He's a very good host.
Missing Jaden.
And I just want
We
to
are
say,
missing Jay.
thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm a big fan. You have great guests, and I'm so glad to see independent culture and media coming out of Chelmsford to be proud of. So,
Yes,
That
mate.
means a
And
lot, Pete.
have a word
That
with
means a lot.
Scroobius for us, will you?
hey, look, he ain't responding to my messages either.
Oh, it's too big. It's too big now. He's on about episode 480 of his podcast. So it's,
There you go.
we'll never catch him. Don't forget to follow us on @r.u.creative.podcast on Instagram. And we're going to have we've got loads more brilliant guests coming up. Sangeeta doesn't know who they are.
I don't.
I do.
Yeah. But tonight was absolute gold for me.
Thank you very
Do you know
much.
what? Could we go out? Have you got a short piece you could do? before-
100%. I will do a piece called For the Poets. It's a piece which actually, I'm actually going to read questions for my city.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, because it's a Chelmsford piece and it's actually still on the side of the meadows. So if you know where the works is in the meadows,
Yep.
there is a little alcove next to it. Currently, I think there's some massage chairs in there, but yeah, which is such a deep cut. But the mural behind those massage chairs is my poem. Yeah.
I've seen that. I can't believe that's
next time I'm out for a flaneur, I'm going to go and look at it. And do you know what? Actually, at the end of the meadows, do you know those sculptures on the side of the building?
Yeah.
And this is in Chelmsford. They are by the same artist that did the BAFTA statue.
Mad.
Yeah, and that should be a bit of Chelmsford,
Chelmsford, yeah.
pride that we've got this amazing artwork by the person who did the BAFTA.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it anywhere. So next time you're out flaneuring around in Essex, in Chelmsford, look up,
Absolutely.
look at these sculptures, look at the poem on the wall,
Yeah, keep your eyes out.
and look out for the Roman burial site at the Odeon Roundabout.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's deep, deep underground. But hey, it's a deep cut. History is always
you
there.
might, you might find Hadrian's toe bone or something. I don't know.
Go on, let's hear your poem.
Absolutely. So this is Questions for My City by the Repeat Beat Poet. What is underneath Chelmsford? The Odeon Roundabout hides a temple. Molsham Mill saw the peasants revolt. Saxon burial grounds lay under Broomfield, and Shire Hall sits on jails and vaults. Who is forgotten in Chelmsford? Travelling in from miles around, from the capital to the one-road towns, they come with arms outstretched for change. We pay them in lip service, empty smiles and blame. So what can we do to improve Chelmsford? If we tell different stories, we can change people's minds. We can expand our narrow narratives and celebrate the differences we find within the superficial divisions like race, gender, or religion. We can fill our days finding more ways to show love in the time we've been given. And how does Chelmsford inspire me? Behind our past and making our future are everyday people, from teachers to commuters, inventors, ancestors, dissenters, descendants of this magic land, Chelmsfordians, history makers of the future living in the present. And how do I want to be remembered? As a St. John's baby and a grammar school boy, a Ghanaian Super Saiyan who found power and joy in the songs of market traders haggling for sales and the hiss of skateboard trucks kissing curbsides and rails. What has Chelmsford shown you? In essence, that people can become blessings, advice forgotten and memories filled. So build foundations firm and deep. Staying rooted is a skill we have to keep, whether we're soaring, spreading our wings wide and electrifying the night skies, or strengthening family ties, watching the world go by, or returning home to chill. Stay grounded, find balance, remain perceptive, and be still.
Well.
Yes. Oh my God, that
Well
was
done.
amazing.
That was really good. Thank you.
I feel super Siam from that as well, mate.
No chance you put me to shame. I mean, I don't know.